Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Temple Amadora. I know I was kind of busy last week. I was managing the emo space at the One World Tantra Festival, so that kept me really busy, and I didn't really have the time to do very many of my oracle card draws and meditations with you, and the few that I did were more rants about what's going on in the world with Black Lives Matter and the protests and my thoughts on that. And I think that's still important, but I also want to get back to doing more of the regular card draw and meditation. So we'll see what comes up with the cards today and what wants to come forth. Welcome back to Temple Amadora. I'm glad that you're here with me. Somewhere in this area. Yeah. Interesting. It's been a while since I pulled this one. The card is DNA or karma, which is all about ancestral trauma. I think that's really relevant given what's going on right now. And I think that's going to be very juicy and fruitful, but I'll start with talking to you, reading from you about, this is the Earth Magic deck by Stephen Farmer. I will start by reading this one. I know it pretty well. I've drawn this a lot in the past. Again, the card is DNA or karma. Karma, a concept in many Eastern religions, is a Sanskrit word implying the greater universal laws of cause and effect, providing an implied code of ethics within the structure of the seemingly endless cycles of birth, death, and rebirth, samsara, which we experience throughout our lives. In many different versions, the mistaken notion about karma is that it's some kind of punishment, but it's far from that. In fact, in its purest form, it simply asserts that our conduct in this lifetime will determine our next incarnation. It has also come to mean how our behavior and actions in this lifetime create consequences in a slightly different version of the Golden Rule. We not only carry our soul's karma into this lifetime, but also embedded in the complex coding of our DNA is our genetic ancestral karma. The double helix structure of DNA contains codes that have been passed down from our parents and our grandparents, as well as our ancestors. Therefore, we have some of the same genetic information that comes from the DNA of very early humans. In this card, we see two intertwined serpents with double helixes on either side. Variations of this archetypal image exist in many cultures, both traditional and contemporary. It's a graphic representation of the most ancient ancestry we can lay claim to, our DNA, the fundamental substance of life itself that provides substantial determination of our life path. Aspects of your soul entered your primitive physical self long before you had begun to take form. While the DNA that you inherited from your biological parents has a physical component, it also has a soul pattern that came together in the creation of you. You are predisposed to follow the karmic dictates of this patterning to some extent, yet as you evolve in your consciousness and expand the light of awareness, you can make choices that shift and modify this ancestral design. This is one of those times. You can feel the tug of your soul that is both ancient and karmic, yet you also recognize the persistent and loving communication from your higher self that contradicts the more familiar solutions before you. The choice is up to you, but know that every time you need the guidance of your higher self, no matter what etheric or physical form it takes, human consciousness is elevated. In a sense, it becomes a choice between destiny and fate. This card really pulled to me strongly today. And I think it's because of what's going on out in the greater world, in the protests that have been happening all over our country, in Washington, D.C., in cities around our country and around the world. Because the protests weren't just happening in the United States. They're even happening overseas. This is 400 years of karma that we're carrying in our society. 400 years of ancestral trauma that is carried in the DNA of those who were brought to this country forcibly against their will, enslaved. And if you understand the science of epigenetics, you understand that trauma that happens in one generation is carried forth in the DNA to the next generation. It's partly cultural conditioning, but there are actually what we call epigenetic changes that upregulate or downregulate genes based on the trauma that occurred generations ago. And this trauma can be passed for 7 generations. They have done studies in rats that have shown in a rat that was subjected to a traumatic stimulus over and over and over again, and then it had babies, and those babies were never subjected to the same stimulus, and then those rats also had babies, and then they subjected the babies of the like 2 or 3 generations down to the same stimulus that the grandparents experience, and they panic. If you look at the DNA of Black people who came from generations of people who were enslaved, they carry that karma. They carry that those upregulated genes. It's a matter of like, if you are in a form that has been subjected to this trauma over and over and over again, you have chronically upregulated your DNA to secrete more of the neurotransmitters of stress. And once that has been turned on, that upregulated gene can be passed. The same configuration and folding of the DNA gets passed to the offspring. So that newborn infant, even though it's just being born into the world, it carries that same sense of anxiety and hypervigilance, that upregulation. And they have shown that scientifically again and again and again. But you know the beautiful thing about that? That's not a matter of the sequencing of your DNA, which you have no control over. It's a matter of the protein folding, the way the proteins fold up the DNA into the package that we see as that those chromosomes. It's the matter of the way they're folded and packaged. And we have the power with our minds and with our intention to heal generations of trauma. We have the power to heal that within us so that we don't pass that same upregulation to our kids. We have the power to heal ancestral trauma in people who have inherited this package. We're not powerless. And that is so important because it means that we don't have to be a slave to this. We don't have to carry those same burdens, and we don't have to pass them down to our kids. Yet in this society, we are perpetuating them because we are perpetuating the systemic racism. We are perpetuating the structural things that cause this continued upregulation. Someone who is born to a Black person is much less likely to complete their education. From preschool on, they are much less likely to graduate high school. They are much more likely to end up incarcerated. And it's because of the structural things within our society. And this we all carry responsibility for. Because if we're not speaking out, we are complicit. We are just like those 3 cops who just stood there and watched while that cop kneeled on the neck of Floyd for 8 minutes, cutting off his windpipe, asphyxiating him. Those 3 cops are just as complicit in the murder as the one who is kneeling on his neck, because they did nothing. They said nothing. So if you're sitting there in your fucking ivory tower and you're saying nothing, you are complicit in this. You hold responsibility in this. Kali Ma has been coming through me a lot lately. She's pissed as hell. Because we all need to be pissed. We need to take action. We need to make a difference. We need to speak out for those who can't speak for themselves. Or those who try to speak for themselves but are not heard. Everyone deserves a voice. We have to find our own voices and speak for our brothers and sisters. We have to dismantle this systemic stratification in our society. We need to make sure that these newborn infants that are being born have options and choices and are able to live into their full potential. I saw a post, one of my friends posted, was a biracial person holding up a sign at one of the protests saying, if you're born to a biracial family, you've got a Black mother and a white father or whatever, you shouldn't have to choose sides. We are one race. One race, we share this DNA, and what makes us alike is way more significant than what makes us different. Whatever color skin you were born with, it's just luck. When you decided to incarnate onto this planet, and I believe we all chose to incarnate here at this time for different reasons. You choose your family, you choose your circumstances, you come into a body to learn certain lessons. One of those lessons is learning to speak for yourself. But one of those lessons is also learning to speak for others. To not look the other way. To take responsibility for making this world a better place. So I believe that we are all complicit. If we're not speaking out, if we're not using our voices, we are complicit, just like those cops who stood by and watched while he asphyxiated a man over a forged check. Who the fuck cares? Every person has a right to their breath. I believe that We are all incarnations of the divine. The way we access the divine is through our breath. He denied that man his breath. It's not okay. Just like we've been kneeling on the necks of African Americans for 400 years. It's the same thing. Whether you're hanging them from the trees, making sure that they don't have educational opportunities, making sure that they go to the poorest schools, making sure that they can't live in your neighborhood. We are all one. We are much more the same. There's much more that unites us than what makes us different. It's time to speak out. It's time to use our voices. We can heal generations of trauma. But it starts with giving people a fucking chance to get out of fight or flight mode. You know, I have friends who were caught right in the middle of the race riots in New York and LA. Talking to them all weekend. They were supposed to be my volunteers. Some of whom had to bow out and couldn't do that job because of the stress that they were under. They were white. They saw the importance of standing up and speaking for what is right. Yeah, I haven't been out there on the streets. I've been here in my temple managing a Tantra workshop. I'm using my voice in other ways. I want to be part of the healing. I want to be part of the unification. I'm looking at creating a better world on the other side of this. I don't have all the answers. But I'm asking you to use your voice. Reach out a hand to those who are facing this. Do you have a black friend you haven't reached out to because you just don't know what to say? Maybe send them a text. Maybe give them a call. Let them know you care. Most important, make sure you're fucking registered to vote. Because we need a change in leadership in this nation. And we need to make sure our elections are not co-opted. That they aren't hacked. I don't have answers for that. I believe that when we stand together, support each other, it helps provide a space of healing. So many beautiful things happening out on the streets in some of those demonstrations. I shared a video this morning from Skip Kelly that he took of a demonstration in Washington, D.C. You should check it out. It's fucking beautiful. And I've heard beautiful things about things that have happened at some of the demonstrations in the Bay Area. It's not all fires and looting and rioting. The vast majority of people who are really wanting to get out there and make a difference. We want to see this world change. We want to see us be better. Look at yourself. Where can you help out? Where can you use your voice? Where are you being complicit? Thank you, Jessica, for your comments, by the way. Appreciate you. Shall we meditate? Just grounding down. Feeling your sits bones on the ground, grounding deep, deep into Mother Earth. Feeling her supporting you, supporting all life. Breathing, taking a nice deep breath in, breathing all the way into the belly. And exhaling with a sigh. One more time, taking a nice deep breath in, pulling that energy all the way up into your heart. Expanding your belly. And exhaling with a sigh as you send a deep taproot down into the ground, down, 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 grounding deep, deep, deep into Mother Earth. And on each breath, grounding further, deeper, seeing your taproot branch out, connecting in with the mycelium and with the network of the underground internet, connecting you into all of life on this planet. Feeling yourself connected to the trees and the roots underground. Feeling you connected to all other life on this planet. It's also supported by Mother Gaia. Slowing down your breath. Just focusing on the inhale and the exhale. Feeling yourself supported by Mother Earth, grounded into her loving arms, supported, connecting into all life on Earth, understanding that we are all one, but there is no difference, there is no separation. Connecting into your ancestors, I want you to just feel your ancestors behind your back. Your mother's on your right shoulder, your father's on your left, and her mother's on her left shoulder, and her father's on her right, and going back generation upon generation upon generation. Sensing the presence of all your ancestors back for generations upon generations, knowing that they're here and that they've got your back. And if there's any problems in your ancestral line, I just want you to see a plane of plexiglass behind your back that's keeping you safe. Understanding that that ancestor was maybe not as resourced, so you're gonna just find an ancestor back there in those generational lines that is resourced, and Tell them, I give this to you. You take care of that person, the one that wasn't resourced, and I don't need to take that on. Just letting that go. Feeling the support behind you of all the generations of ancestors who did have your back. All of those thousands of ancestors who contributed to you being here today. Understanding that no matter what they experienced in their time on the planet, they had their own path. They had their own karma, their own wounds to heal during their lifetimes. And if there's anything that you've carried forward into this lifetime, from those generations upon generations upon generations, I want you to see that. I want you to go into your body. I just want you to look inside. I want you to go inside and find anything that you carried forward into this life that doesn't belong to you. I just want you to look inside and ask your ancestors to help you. Say, I'm here now. This is my body. And while you carried this heavy burden, I don't need to carry it for you anymore. Whatever that was, slavery, the Holocaust, rape, murder, abuse, whatever that was, I want you to just lovingly pack that into a suitcase. All of those things, even if there's multiple things, multiple people, multiple generations, all of that stuff. Somebody who had mental illness, someone who was in jail, someone who ended their life prematurely because they couldn't handle this time on earth. I want you to see that and lovingly forgiving that ancestor for what they carried and what they unwittingly transferred to you. Just tease that apart. Pack that each item lovingly into that suitcase, saying, this isn't mine. I'm ready to give it back. No matter what it is, no matter how painful, you don't need to carry it anymore. So one by one, folding those up, packing them away into the suitcase. Even if the suitcase gets really full, know that there's always room for another thing. Put it all in there. Those who had mental illness, who committed suicide, who were enslaved, who were in concentration camps, who were the masters of slaves. Those who oppressed and those who were oppressed. Packing it all up into that suitcase, and even if it's bulging, you can put the lid down and you can sit on it. Snap those latches closed. And I want you to look back in your ancestral line, and I want you to find that one person in your ancestral line who is the most resourced, the one who is, even if you have to go back 10 generations, doesn't matter how far back you have to go back to that person that has the most resources in all your generations. And I want you to pick up that suitcase, and I want you to hand that suitcase back to that person all those generations ago. And I want you to say, thank you so much for your DNA. Thank you for bringing life into the world so that I could have life. I've been carrying this heavy suitcase for so many years, and it came from generations of suffering. Suffering caused and suffering received. But it's not mine. None of it's mine. I don't need to carry it anymore. And I beg you, I ask you to take it from me. You have the resources. You've passed from this world. Can you see that this gets recycled so that no one in my line needs to carry it anymore? I don't want to pass this burden to my friends, to my children, to anyone. It's time to let it go. I want you to see yourself handing that suitcase to that ancestor. And if you need to, you can strengthen that plexiglass shield to protect yourself from it. You don't need it anymore. I want you to see yourself strengthening your aura, strengthening your field. I want you to pulling energy up through your base chakra and into your heart. Sending that energy out through the top of your head and seeing a cascade all around you. Strengthening your aura, strengthening your shield. Taking several breaths in, pulling that energy up and in through your spine and sending it cascading around you, and seeing all of any defect in your personal shield or boundary just being filled in. I just want you to see yourself filling yourself so fully, connected to the earth beneath you, receiving energy from the cosmic sources above, from Father Sky, feeling tethered into whatever star you feel aligned with. Allowing that cosmic energy to come in through your crown, the earth energy through your root, pulling that energy up through your heart and cascading it around you. Feeling yourself strong and grounded. And I just want you to see coming into your body just this golden light, just you're pulling in this golden light. And it's permeating every single cell in your body, going through the DNA of every single cell. I want you to see this just like swirling golden, like spirals of light through every single strand of DNA throughout your body, cleansing and purifying and cleaning and realigning, resetting everything back to factory settings, turning off all regulated and activated DNA that does not serve you. turning off any epigenetic markers that lead to constant upregulation of your nervous system, that lead to fight or flight, knowing that you are safe. You are protected. You are fully supported by Mother Earth. You are connected to Source. You have everything that you need. Seeing those swirling golden swirls of light passing through every strand of DNA, cleansing it, cleaning it, purifying it. Feeling yourself born anew in this moment. Your body renewed, regenerated, your DNA renewed and regenerated. Feeling your nervous system relax, feeling your shoulders relax. Knowing that you are one with all that is. That you are enough. You are safe. You are protected. You are grounded. You are held. And that all those generations of ancestors, they have your back. They want what is best for you. And I want you to see that ancestor, that strong, capable ancestor who took that suitcase from you. He's kneeling, he or she is kneeling down to pray. Making ritual to release all those generations of karma, all those generations of abuse, of suffering, of all that you carried. And he's making a fire and offering that suitcase into the fire. And as that fire consumes the suitcase, it transmutes all of those generations of suffering, of abuse, of trauma, sending it back into the universe. Back into the universe to be recycled so that no one needs to carry it, no matter what it was. Feeling yourself free. Feeling yourself free at last. Noticing a lightness in your shoulders as your shoulders relax. Feeling a new lightness that you know that you can carry into your day. Because you are not responsible for carrying that weight anymore. You let it go. Let it go. The most powerful words in the English language. You just let it go. It slides off you like water off a duck's back. You don't need to carry this burden anymore. Knowing that as you wake from this meditation that you have changed on a cellular level. You are fundamentally different now. And the way you walk in the world, the way you show up, will have changed as well. knowing that, owning that. Decide now, who do you want to be? How do you want to show up? How do you want to be remembered? What is your legacy? You can use your words to beat people down, or you can use your words to build people up. What do you choose? We are building a new world. You get to help decide what that world looks like. How are you going to show up? Making a promise to yourself. Decide who you want to be. What side of history do you want to be on? The world is not going back to what it was before. We are creating a new world. Each of every one of us is contributing to that new world. The thoughts we think, the words we choose, how we choose to show up. What we choose to share. Where we put our focus. Taking a nice deep breath in. Breathing out with a sigh. Coming into your body. Knowing that you've fundamentally shifted. And slowly opening your eyes. Coming back. How are you going to show up? What world do you want to live in? How are you going to use your voice to create that world? Thank you for joining me today. So much love.